what we start to do is build a package that recognizes that time is stressful, but that you can't challenge your sleep then again with alcohol. Right. And if your sleep is, we know that you might fall asleep, but your sleep is going to be terrible. And you can track that and prove that to yourself. The walking that we recommend, listen, 10 or 15,000 steps, it's 8,000 steps because we want you to load. We want you to get outside and get some sunshine. You need to decongest the body, flushing the lymphatics through muscle contraction. But also you have to accumulate enough non-exercise activity fatigue that you actually want to fall asleep. So if you lay in bed for 3 hours, you may not have moved enough during the day. We want everyone to recognize that these things are integrated systems of systems, and we don't have to play perfect because tomorrow is a brand new game set. And all we have to do is a little different because today I blew it, or I chose to blow it. I went out and had drinks and stayed up late and it was super fun. Tomorrow I just have to play a little bit better.
Howdy, and welcome to the show. Cooper's Code focuses on legal issues and notable individuals, distilling wisdom so we all achieve the best results for our clients. I'm Miles Cooper, and I'm honored to share part 2 of this conversation with Kelly and Juliet Starrett. A couple of times I've heard the phrase on the ground, and I feel like that might not be just coincidental. Do you have any thoughts on in terms of improving one's mobility being correlated to spending a certain amount of time on the ground every day? And if so, how does one do that?
I'll start by telling you about, we open our book Built to Move with something called the sit and rise test, which is based on a 2017 study that showed that the participants who could get up and down off the ground without using a knee or hand lived longer than those that
from
could
a
not.
crisscross applesauce position.
So from like a cross-legged position. And for anyone who wants to try the test, you basically cross your legs and you lower yourself to the ground under control. And then the goal is to get back up off the ground without using a knee or a hand. And each point of contact you use, you sort of lose a point out of 10. Anything 8 over 10 and you're great. So you can actually use 1 point of contact to get up and you're still going to be fine.
Just rolling like a weeble wobble. Is that cheating?
Exactly.
That's dynamic.
What
dynamic
we love about this test is that we've all, nobody cares about their mobility until they do. But this is just very revealing for people. It's the first time often people as adults are like, oh my God, like this thing that I used to do a billion times a day in elementary school, which is get up and down off the ground, has actually all of a sudden become difficult and uncomfortable. And then the actual act of sitting on the ground is also very uncomfortable for most American adults. And what we love about the sit and rise test is it's this really interesting window for anybody. Anybody can do the test. You can do it with your family and your friends and your kids. It's a super interesting window into sort of, in most cases, your loss of mobility from your movement choices.
You don't have to be very strong or mobile to do it.
Yeah. And also the number one reason, the other reason we like it is the number one reason people end up in a nursing home is a fall.
And or can't get them down off the ground independently.
Can't get up and down off the ground. So we think this is something people should practice. So not only do we think you should practice getting up and down off the ground, but you should spend some time sitting on the ground. And I like to do it while I'm sitting on my laptop working at home, or when Kelly and I watch TV at night, we both like to sit on the ground, not even for the whole time, because I like sitting on the couch too. But, we recommend everybody sit on the ground for 30 minutes a night. And just the act of sitting on the ground is a mobility practice because you naturally are going to change positions. You sit cross-legged, you might move your legs to 90-90, long sit with just your your legs out in front of you. Kneeling is fine. But, the human brain is like, especially because we're not adapted to sitting on the ground as much, we naturally need to change positions in order to find a place of comfort. But that is actually good. All that changing of positions is like a passive hip mobility drill. So it's one of our favorite ways to sort of give people some insight into where they are and then give, a simple tool to, just begin to look at your mobility, specifically your hip mobility. But the other thing we love about it, two other things we love about it. First of all, if we, if people took nothing from this, but to sit on the floor while they're watching TV at night, which we know everybody's doing, the data shows everybody's doing it for 3 hours a night. So take 30 minutes of that on the floor. What we've also found is once you're on the floor, you're more likely to actually start to kind of begin a conversation with your body. We have a basket, speaking of peppering our environment and having a movement rich environment. We have a basket of mobility tools sitting on the floor of our living room, and you're already sitting on the ground and you're like, my calf is feeling a little bit tweaked. I'm going to get out this foam roller or this massage tool, or this lacrosse ball, and I'm just going to start to do a little bit of work on my body while I'm watching TV. So what we love about it is like perfect for busy people. You don't have to go put on your shoes and get your yoga mat and go out of the house to a class. Spend the money. You're just home doing something you're already doing, which is relaxing before you go to bed, watching TV, and you just switch to doing that on the floor, and consider adding some little tools into your life and starting a little bit of a mobility practice on the floor.
And let me stack some behaviors for you. One of the keystone behaviors that we believe in is sleep. So we're also into observable, measurable, so repeatable behaviors. So everyone, don't panic, but you're going to need to be in bed for 8 hours without looking at your phone. You don't think you're going to sleep for a full 8 hours because you have not adapted yourself to sleeping. You've trained yourself into sleeping 6 hours, right? The stimulant depressant cycling you're currently doing with red wine and 16 caffeine shots, or the Ambien and Adderall, or the THC and meth that you're taking in the morning, the green tea. We understand it's complicated, but we need you to understand that really 8 hours is a magic number of sleep. And when people become sleep adapted, they sleep for 8 hours. And it's interesting, just as an aside, the German word for night is the letter N and the number 8. And the same thing happens in French. The same thing happens in Italian. Things that happens in Spanish. It's almost like humans have been like, we should sleep for 8 hours. Just saying, just as an aside. Coincidence? I'm not sure. But the idea here is that we found that when people mobilize a little bit, sat on the ground, mobilize their hips, maybe engaged in some soft tissue work, they fell asleep faster and they stayed asleep longer. And it's almost like they started to train themselves. And it's just like having a bath as a kid. I had a bath, I read a book, I went to bed. And now you do this soft tissue work and you start to have this parasympathetic input. It helps you to down-regulate, helps you to break the stress of the day. You're getting a massage, you start to relax, and then you fall asleep and you stay asleep longer. And it's crucial to understand that you can track these things because you have an Apple Watch or you have an Oura Ring or you're wearing a Whoop. And don't take our word for it. Go ahead and look at your wattage change on your Peloton when you start to do what? Sit on the ground more and improve your hip range of motion. Again, we want to move past beyond the subjective, my body feels good or bad. I don't want to just do things when it hurts. I want to be playing offense. And offense means I improve my sleep, I have less brain fog, I fall asleep faster, the things I care about going fast in my sports feel better. It's such a wonderful win-win-win. And all we're doing is starting to anchor this behavior at the end of the day when you have nothing else going on. The last 10 minutes before you go to the bedroom, this is an easy thing to implement.
As a lawyer, I feel I need to ask certain questions to follow up on some of these things. So the sitting on the ground is a backrest, like leaning up against the couch, leaning up against the wall. Is that cheating?
Totally
or is
fine.
That,
nope.
That's okay.
That's totally fine. That's what I mean.
Cheating. No, the sitting on the ground place will show up.
No, I'm always sitting right in front of my couch, leaning against the couch.
Yeah, that's great.
On the sleep side, one of the things I think you'll frequently hear from, I hear from a lawyer friend of mine who has young kids and a busy practice, is I just don't have enough time to, stay fit and do my practice and take care of my kids. And so it's either sleep or do the things I need to do. So, 5 hours is fine for me. And what do you say to somebody like that when they're in that situation?
I would go back to this. We are all going to have seasons of our lives where sleep is going to be more difficult, whether it's from travel or kids. And obviously you can't throw exercise out the door for the first 5 years of your kid's life, right? That the cost there is too big. But I would probably recommend someone like that, can probably get by with like 3 days a week of exercise and a couple extra nights of good sleep. So, I would say that it might be a time where you aren't going to be able to train 6 days a week. And maybe that's too big of a cost if it means you're only getting 5 hours of sleep 7 nights a week. So I think a lot of it is about, really picking some trade-offs at those really high stress times, especially when you have a little kid.
I do want to say that your babies aren't babies forever. And the trial isn't going forever.
Yeah.
You're being really dishonest. We didn't sleep for months and months and months, and you can tolerate that and you're going to be okay. And I want to tell everyone that's okay.
Right.
But then you have to come back up to the benchmark.
Yeah.
And the benchmark is, okay, I've got some more window and more agency. I'm going to retrain myself to spend an extra half hour in bed. And I'm going to start saying to myself, I'd really like to watch TV and doom scroll, but instead I'm going to go ahead and get into bed a little bit early. And I really have to be much more disciplined. Juliet said something really crazy early on about not drinking. So you can almost split all the behaviors of a human being into sort of a tonic or a stressor. Is this net positive for the nervous system, or is this a challenge to the nervous system? And sauna and cold plunge, those are challenges to the nervous system. They are, right? Alcohol is a challenge to the nervous system. And so what we start to say is, well, where and when are we putting in, and I want to pull getting hot and cold out for a second, but self-soothing with donuts and little, snacks, right? There's times where we're going to be way more tolerant of that. And there's times where you have less tolerance from that. And what we really are saying that in those times where sleep is mean and lean, you're going to have to make some decisions about, hey, I have less tolerance for some of these other things. There's going to be less tolerance for me to be on Facebook or scroll or downregulate. Juliet, listen, everyone loves to watch some TV. She's a CEO. She's a badass human being. Her brain is crazy. TV is one of the ways that she shifts out of that mode and gets into blind alpha state. And she's like, okay, I'm back in human being. And that's a great coping mechanism, but it can't be 3 hours of that. And so I think people are really being dishonest. I'm like, really? You only can sleep for 5 hours for the next 3 months? I don't believe so. I believe that you can start to get one extra night of sleep in there or 15 more minutes here and there. And what we start to do is build a package that recognizes that time is stressful, but that you can't challenge your sleep then again with alcohol. Right. And if your sleep we know that you might fall asleep, but your sleep is going to be terrible. And you can track that and prove that to yourself. The walking that we recommend, isn't 10 or 15,000 steps, it's 8,000 steps, because we want you to load. We want you to get outside and get some sunshine. You need to decongest the body, flushing the lymphatics through muscle contraction. But also you have to accumulate enough non-exercise activity fatigue that you actually want to fall asleep. So if you lay in bed for 3 hours, you may not have moved enough during the day. We want everyone to recognize that these things are integrated systems of systems, and we don't have to play perfect, because tomorrow is a brand new game set. And all we have to do is a little different, because today I blew it, or I chose to blow it. I went out and had drinks and stayed up late and it was super fun. Tomorrow I just have to play a little bit better.
The takeaway for me is, because different things are stressors, I should be drinking in the sauna, doom scrolling. Is that
100%?
Exactly it.
Okay. Only if that's your self-soothing mechanism. Remember, we're just self-soothing. We primates just I don't want to feel less pain. I want to feel less discomfort. That's a normal, okay behavior. I feel so wild and the demands on my life are so high that I need to be thinking, wow, how am I supporting that? If you were a professional athlete, what we would say is, oh, it's the world championships. Drink all this alcohol. Let's go ahead and only eat crappy food, and let's not sleep, and let's add even more stress to you. You'd be like, no, you're not going to win the world championship. We're like, we know. So let's take what we're learning and let's control what we can control.
I remembered what I was going to say too. I think there's a lot of stupid stuff in the fitness space. And one of those things, which I hope is a trend that's starting to be sunsetted, and that is that there was a trend for a long time, and my guess is that quite a few lawyers jumped on it because, again, high performers, and that is like, let's set your alarm for 5 o'clock, so before the kids wake up, you've had time to do your 20-minute breathing practice and write in your gratitude journal and do all these things. Well, under not a single circumstance are any of those things ever worth missing an hour of sleep for. Like the only thing that I would miss sleep for when with little kids and a time crunched sleep schedule is exercise. And I wouldn't do that every single day, by the way. I think when you have little kids, like it might be a 3-day-a-week gig for you from exercise standpoint. So those
that's
other
Friday,
nights
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. And that might be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so that those other nights you can get more sleep. But I mean, there is very few other health and wellness behaviors I would ever say are worth compromising an hour of sleep for. Like,
and we're just talking about brain health.
Yeah. I mean,
just clearing the junk and waste products of your brain, which happens during your sleep.
One of the things I will add, I was one of those people who on the sleep side felt like 4 hours was enough.
Yeah. Your brain lied to you so effectively that you actually believed that and still performed well because you're a badass.
Well, what I found when I finally started doing 8 hours of sleep, probably 5-6 years ago, was that I got sick far less frequently. I was not as much of an asshole, still a little bit of an asshole, but it frees up so much capacity in the brain, and it seems in your immune system, that it's definitely worth it. But it would, if I had been trying to tell the earlier me that, I wouldn't believe
you might not have been able to hear it. And also, I mean,
seven is our minimum threshold for, like, if you're trying to grow a body, do something superior at work, change body composition, get out of pain. 7 is the threshold floor. So we're shooting for 8. 7, we're going to be like, okay, it's survival time.
Yeah. And I think the big thing too is just the work efficiency piece. I mean, it's, if you're getting 8 hours of sleep, your day is going to be, the work you get done is going to be 10 times more efficient, which in the law is really important.
The data totally supports that. And the data also supports that you can buffer it for a few nights, and then your brain will start to tell you you're operating at the same level of efficiency at the same sleep. But that's a defense mechanism because your brain says, well, this is the way it is now, so let's just prop up your lies to yourself. And all of the research shows that you decay in any psychological behavior, any metric of performance really starts to decay very quickly.
If you're enjoying what we're doing here with Cooper's Code, please extend our reach by giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and consider sharing an episode with a friend. Additionally, we want to know who you want to hear on the show. Have an interview suggestion? Email us at podcast@coopers.law. As we talk about sleep, do you have any beliefs, positions on timing? Early to bed, early to rise, or 8 hours is 8 hours?
I mean, we know people who are like diehard night owls, and we are really of like 8 hours is 8 hours. So if that's from 1 to 9 or whatever, because I know a lot of lawyers are kind of late into the office and stay late, and maybe might be more night owls. So no, I mean, I think what's more important is trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. And that includes on the weekend. That's really hard for people because, you want to have a social life and go out. But especially for people who have disordered sleep or insomnia problems, that one of the worst things you can do if you suffer from insomnia is, have your 4 nights at home where you go to sleep at 10 and wake up at 6. But then on the weekends, you're like, yeah, I'm going to sleep at 1 a.m. and trying to sleep until 9. So that, I think it's more about trying to get into a rhythm where you're going to sleep at the same time and waking up at the same time, even if that's from 1 to 9.
Everyone, what's amazing is if I just got back from New York and 3-hour jet lag, it's real. I'm going, like I called Juliet and she's like, oh, I guess you're going to bed. It's 7 p.m. your time, and I'm like, who goes to bed at 7? I'm not going to have a good night's sleep. We jet lag ourselves often on the weekends with our sleep. By shifting your sleep schedule a couple hours, you are now self-inducing jet lag. No wonder you feel like crap.
Yeah, like we really think a lot of the reason people have Monday dread and don't feel good on Mondays is they're jet lagged from their weekend, from change. So we started to think about it that way. Like if you struggle on a Monday, it's because you're jet lagged because you totally shifted your sleep schedule over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And keeping in mind that it doesn't have to be perfect. You're tolerant. You're a human being. You can handle the stress. But you just got to get back on board. When people do these fitness challenges, again, it's not about fitness. It's about body composition challenges. I want to feel less gross for my wife. That's reasonable, and I respect that. It's a 90-day challenge usually, or 30 days. But show me someone who said, I'm going to work on my sleep for 30 days or 90 days. No one says that. what ends up happening is they're like, I tried it. This is who I am. I've always been like, it's going to take a minute to rewire your brain. That's okay. You have time to always improve it. Here's a simple strategy. Again, we want you to lie in bed for 8 hours if you can. And you might not go to sleep. That's okay. Resting is the next best thing. And you're just not allowed to look at your phone. You can just lay there and just be quiet. And if you wake up early, you're not allowed to get up until your alarm goes off, but just be resting for 8 hours. The second thing I think has been useful is getting people on a shaping gradient where they start to practice being in bed a half hour earlier. If I get 30 more minutes of sleep in 2 weeks, I've just snuck an entire night of sleep into your repertoire. That's incredible. Raise your hand if you want an extra night of sleep every 2 weeks? Like, raise my hand. Yeah. That's getting into bed just 30 minutes earlier. And so if it feels untenable, it's not like you went to some spa and someone, remade your whole workout schedule and made all your food. You just need to improve it a little bit. And the body is that sensitive, and you will come around. And remember, long game. We have all this great evidence now. What's it mean when we implement it? And as Juliet's always talking, the real problems we're having is information versus implementation.
And I really want to emphasize for this group, the rest is the next best thing as sleep.
Monkey brain is real.
Because, as a lawyer and someone who's a high performer, I am 100% prone to insomnia. I'm processing a lot at night. Sometimes I can't turn off. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are like that. I know a lot of lawyers like that. And it always felt weird to me, though, all of this sleep advice to say, okay, well, you can't sleep, get up and go watch TV, or go get up and, leave the bed or whatever. That felt weird to me because I was like, oh man, like then I'm just further arousing my body and it's going to make it even harder to fall asleep. And then I've just spent my night watching movies. That always felt wrong to me. And when this idea of like rest is the next best thing to sleep, that was really freeing for me, because I realized I was like, you know what? As a now my big problem is I'm a menopausal woman and I wake up for a variety of menopause related reasons. And, rather than get up and wake up my body and move around and go sit on the couch, I just figure out ways to meditate and breathe. And I lay there, and I actually have sort of removed the stress from it. I don't stress if I wake up. I'm like, you know what? Rest is the next best thing to sleep. I'm still going to be able to function tomorrow if I just lay here and chill and rest. It's been very transformative as someone who does and has had, issues sleeping, because, that's where I often am processing my stress or thoughts or whatever.
We talked about being movement rich. We talked about sleep. We talked about small ways to make some incremental gains, sitting on the floor for certain things. Standing desks and altering so that one is not sedentary. Are there other tools that you would recommend to professionals who are in the challenging work, the Zoom-based work that we find ourselves in, even right now, to a certain extent, in terms of this podcast?
We've hinted at it a little bit, but I guess I think I cannot over say the benefits of walking. And even busy professionals can walk. I mean, I think we've all learned that you can't do deep work for 12 hours in a row. And I can't remember what podcast we heard it on, but somebody was like, the ideal work, deep work block is 90 minutes. So man, I would suggest people schedule in a 90-minute deep work block and then go take a 10-minute walk. Get outside your office, take a 10-minute walk. If you do that 4 or 5 times a day, and then maybe walk your dog when you get home at night, you've easily accumulated 8,000 steps.
The average American is spending 20 minutes outside a week.
Wow.
Full stop. A week, because you're going from your house to your car, from your car in the garage, and you wait at work and you park in the car parking garage. You didn't go outside all day. And so one of the things we're trying to do is get some sunlight, get some fresh air, really.
Yeah. One of my strategies is, we have our office is a 45-minute walk from our house, and it's not pretty. It's kind of crappy. You have to cross over this freeway. But there are some days where I can tell that I'm not going to have any chance to exercise at all. I just see the future, and, I can't exercise. But I just time it in so that I just put my backpack on and I walk to my office, and that's what I got for the day. And, maybe I take a walking meeting and, a few 10-minute walks.
So thank you for bringing that up. I was going to ask you if you do any sort of walking meetings, and if so, how do you incorporate that into the work that you do?
I mean, it works for us because everybody at our office is excited about any opportunity to get away from their desk and walk. And so anytime we have a meeting that doesn't require us to be on Zoom or looking at documents, that's just walking. I mean, that can be done walking. We're doing that. We also have we have a coffee place that's like a 10-minute walk from here. So, we'll often all just leave our desks and 7 minutes we'll just leave our desk and walk over there to get coffee. And we talk about work on the way to and the way from, right? We sort of turn it into like a, break/walking meeting. So huge fan of walking meetings. I mean, I think if you're not on Zoom and don't have to be on Zoom, great ways to, and you can bring a notepad if you want, or take notes on your phone if you have to. But huge fan of that. Huge fan.
One of our good friends was former CEO of BBDO. And he had a policy at his office called walk, call, click. First thing you need to do is get up and talk to someone. Second thing to do would call them. The third one would be email them. And the idea was that it was fostering better communication. And I want to say that there are all these ancillary benefits to being in face with someone. And it is so easy to be like, did you get that? But stand up from your desk, squeeze your butt, go walk over, have a 2-second conversation, walk back. And already you've just completely changed sort of the structure of what's happening in your body today. There was a time where Exxon, and they may still do this, they can be corrected, would lock everyone out at the top of every hour.
Yeah.
Or top of every couple hours. They would lock the computers down. And everyone was like, and the computer system locked down. And everyone had to stand up and everyone would kvetch because they're in the middle of a project, and they would go talk. And they would just hang out in the middle for, 5 or 10 minutes. And just that what they saw was decreased back pain, increased communication. When Juliet worked at Reed Smith, one of the things that happened was they used to walk around and...
so let me explain. So when I started, it was Crosby Heafy, and we were over in Oakland, and then we became Reed Smith. And the old Crosby Heafy office, there were two things about it that were really interesting. It was in a high rise, but there were internal staircases, and then we still would do our research in a library. We're 100 years old, by the way, but we would go to the library. And then during my very short legal career, I moved to a Reed Smith office in San Francisco where the only way to go from floor to floor was by elevator. There were no internal stairs. And then we stopped using the library. And actually, my own experience working there sort of went from being kind of magical, actually, to feeling very isolated. Like I would show up and go to my office and shut my door and often not interact with people for the entire day and then go back home. And so my own joy of being at the office was super diminished by literally these two physical things, like not having an internal staircase. And one story I'll tell you is I'd left the law firm, and I had come back 2 years later to have lunch with an old friend of mine. I was in the elevator and I was talking to another lawyer who had always worked on a different floor. And I realized that she hadn't realized I had left the firm.
Wow.
She was talking to me as though I still worked there, because just the elimination of the internal staircase and not going to the library had changed our work culture so much that we would never have had it wasn't weird that she wouldn't see me for 2 years. And I was like, actually, I don't work here anymore. So I think we, unfortunately, often people are working at home. Offices are so different. I think that does mean we have to be a little more intentional about how we move around and how we interact with people. And so that's one of the things I like about the 90-minute work block, and then just forcing yourself to get up and go interact with people and take a few steps, or invite people to walk and go get coffee for 10 minutes. Even the best, smartest, high-performing lawyers aren't working efficiently for 12 hours in a row. Nobody's doing that. It just is not how the human brain works. In order to be creative and thoughtful and do good, deep work, you need to take these little breaks throughout the day. And so, our advice is use those times that you need a little break to actually get up and move. Even better if you can go outside, even better if you can invite a friend to go outside with you. And, we just cannot underestimate the benefits of walking. I mean, if you can, if you go through a phase where you don't have time to do any formal exercise, but you can get 8,000 steps a day, man, you're keeping the iron hot. You're still a human.
And burning a ton
of calories.
And the last thing I just want to talk about is a little bit of what we call hidden calorie control. So one of the things that we're big fans of is trying to get people up to eating, especially people as they get older, like us, in our 40s, 50s, and 60s. We need to eat a little bit more protein. And there's no downside, but we think let's try to get to 0.8 grams per pound body weight as a baseline. If you want to do 1 gram per body weight, that's great. But the idea around this 0.8 is that we find that people end up prioritizing a quality protein. And that can be tofu or tempeh or whatever you like. You only eat grass-fed steak, knock yourself out. We notice we're agnostic about what that protein source is, but hitting this minimum. And then one of the reasons we love that is it has high satiety. It makes you feel full. And if you feel full, guess what you don't reach for? You don't reach for a bunch of crap where you're looking for sort of that immediate serotonin boost, uplift because I'm bored, I'm stuck at my desk. And so we try to get this 0.8 grams of protein. The second thing we try to do is we try to get everyone to get more micronutrients and fiber. And you can do that any way you want, but it rhymes with fruits and vegetables. And we want you to eat 800 grams of fruits and vegetables a day. That's 4 medium-sized apples. So a banana is about 80 to 100 grams of weight. So we're not saying 800 grams of carbohydrate. Don't get us wrong. We're saying 800 grams of fruits and vegetables. And when we start adding fiber back to diet and micronutrients, and if you're like, I am a rutabaga king, I only eat rutabaga, you want to eat 1.4 pounds of rutabaga a day, you knock yourself right out. We don't care if it's done with broccoli or kale or fruits or
baby carrots,
whatever you want to do.
Kelly hates baby carrots.
Okay.
Notice, Miles.
They're the scrappy
the worst vegetable there is on earth.
The antichrist of carrots. So here is the key here is that we find that when we're talking, because a lot of people are saying, hey, I need to get my health under control, but really what they're saying is body composition. I want to be less gross for my wife. So what we're saying is, man, stock your desk. A Starbucks cookie is like 300 plus calories. A pound of melon, a pound of cherries. Go eat a pound of cherries and watch what happens. But you're going to see that you're going to get, that's like 320 calories. There's so much hidden calorie control in gorging on fruits and vegetables that you can be stuffing these things down, feeling really full, feeling really good. And then what you've got is this natural calorie control, 800 grams, 0.8 grams of protein, walk 8,000 steps, sleep 8 hours. You start to see the big eights start to raise their head.
Interesting. So I didn't see that pattern until you brought it up. So there's a magic of 8s with all of this.
Yep. And then our other final 8 recommendation is spend 80 minutes a week outside.
Playing. At least get outside, please.
Walk, play pickleball, go outside. Humans are supposed to go outside.
That's fantastic. Any other suggestions, tricks, tips, habit stacking that you think would be easy and actionable for listeners?
I think we've gone through the main ones. I think what I would advise is to try to encourage people to focus on these things and shut out the noise and all of the gimmicks and fads whenever you can. And unfortunately, you can't out supplement or out sauna or, I don't know what other gimmick, we've come up with in the health and fitness space. You can't outdo those things. You've got to just do these basic health practices. And over it, we say do these things with radical consistency. And so I would just say to try not to get sucked in to the latest fad and gimmick, even though it's exciting and looks cool on Instagram and you can talk about it, on your walking meetings with your friends. These basic things really work, and they really especially work for people who are really time crunched and high performing and do not, for everybody listening to this, health and fitness is not your full-time job. This is always going to be a side gig, and you want to make the most out of that side gig and do these basic habits. And the problem is what we find is people often do one of these things. And it's this sort of group of things in combination that we think is ultimately going to give everybody so much more capacity to feel rested and feel amazing at work.
Not burned out. If you're feeling burned out, you're not doing these things. I promise you. And we kid around. We love all the Everest documentaries, all the stories. We're into Everest disasters. I've been to Everest Basecamp. We're like all Everest consumers, but arguing about which color rope to take through the Khumbu icefall is sort of side to the fact that you're not even at base camp yet. So we call these behaviors base camp. And when it gets hairy, get back to base camp. When it gets stressed, come back to base camp. When the weather's changed, come back to base camp. And what you'll find is this is an operating place from which when you have a little additional capacity, you'll be able to take it. So get yourself to base camp first.
Yeah, when you have time, we're like, great. If you've got time and capacity, like sauna's awesome. But you can't sauna, if you've got an hour a day to do some health practices and you spend that saunaing and you don't eat a vegetable or protein or move your body or sleep, that's a misuse of the amazingness that is the sauna.
Fantastic. Anything else you think we should cover?
I don't think so.
Do we need to talk about the cocaine and steroids of the 80s? No?
No,
All right, we're out.
Yeah,
Sorry, everyone. That's off the table.
Well, I mean, we need our uppers and our downers in whatever fashion they arrive, right? Whether that's green tea and THC or cocaine and yeah.
Look, you have a minute, and if this is the first time you've heard these things as a system, that's really simple and embraced. And you're going to find that it really is remarkable. And I think people don't realize how good they can feel, how much more work they can get done. And more importantly for us, you can come home intact and show up for your family, which is what this is about. Or if you don't have a family, show up for your household or your friends, whatever it takes. You young associates out there, just, start with Basecamp and you'll be shocked that all the other aspects of your life are going to get better.
I'd say you want to do it for your clients and your colleagues as well.
100%.
Because you're going to be delivering if you want to be at the absolute best of your game, whether that's, elite special operations, winning World Series, or doing trial work, you need to do the right thing for your body.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hear, Miles.
Well, really appreciate the two of you taking the time to sit down and help us through this and learn.
Thanks for having us.
I just have to say, I don't know why lawyers get a bad rap, because A, everyone's going to need a lawyer, and B, the funniest, best people in our life are attorneys. Full stop.
Well, you have probably had the joy of spending a large part of your time with a fantastic one.
Accidentally married one.
Seemed like it might have been purposeful.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Well, thanks again. I really appreciated this.
Thanks so much for having us, Miles.
And thank you for listening today. Please email us at podcast@coopers.law with questions, comments, feedback, and suggestions for who we should have on the show. Like what you heard? Share us with a colleague and leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. To all of you doing justice out there, happy hunting.